Now that we cleaned up our form from within our dialog and it's looking a lot better, let's finish this off so when the user updates their information and selects the update button, we will update this card with that user information. Another change we want to make is when the user selects the update button, we're going to close this dialog from the TypeScript file. And we could use a Angular material class to help us with that. But before we add any changes to our code, let's check out the documentation and see how they implement this class. Back here within the dialog component under the overview tab, if you scroll down right below the MatDialog section until you see the MatDialogRef, and this is the class that we'll be implementing in this video. And this class will give us the ability to do a few things. Like, for example, we'll be able to close our dialog from within our TypeScript by using this close method. And also, you could pass data in like they're doing here. In our case, we'll be passing in the user's data. Also, you could do different things after the dialog has closed by using the after closed method as well. And we'll be using that as well. But before we could do any of this, we'll need to bring in the MatDialogRef into our project. Let's implement this first. Let's start off within our dialog component and we'll add in our class within the Angular material dialog we already have set up. We set this up in a prior video. And I'll just add on towards the end here, the MatDialogRef. And then we'll also need to bring that in within our constructor here. So I'll bring that into the end here. And now we have this dialog ref that we could reference. And what this is a type of MatDialogRef with the type of our component, our dialog component. This should give us access to the close method, and we'll use the close method within the save. So when the user submits the form, we call this save method, and we could now call the dialog ref and close our dialog from within this method. And within this method, we could pass in whatever data we want. For example, we could pass in this form and the values of the form. Now, why do we want to close it from within the TypeScript file and not close it from within our HTML here, as we're currently doing? What's nice about closing it from within our TypeScript file is we could close it depending on specific conditions. For example, we could call the backend and validate the user's information before we close the form. There's thousands of different conditions you could check. We will do a simple one. For example, within this if statement here, I'll check to see if the form name value, and we have a value name, and I'll check to see if it's not equal a specific field for a simple test. If our value name is not equal test, then we could close the form. I'll move that down to inside the if condition. In the next video, we'll be doing a better way of giving the user feedback, but for now we'll console log it and I'll send a message to the console, form data sent. And this is just temporary. Now if the value name is equal to test, we'll just console log for now that we're unable to send the form. So we'll console log unable to close form. We'll now need to update our HTML where we call this method. Let's do that next. Within our submit button, now we can remove the MatDialog close. We don't need that anymore. Our TypeScript file is going to handle that. And then also we want to add a type to this button of submit. And when the user clicks on this update and submits the form, this ng submit will pick that up, calling our save method. Before we update the user profile manager to handle the data, let's test this in the browser. Now, if we update the name field to test and then select the update button, our dialog should remain open, and it does. That's great. And in the console, we're also getting a message we're unable to close the form. And then if we change it to something else, we should be able to close the form and send the data off. Now that that is working as expected, now we can send this data off to the user profile component and actually update this card. Let's handle that next. Inside of our parent component, the user profile manager component, we're already bringing in the MatDialog from Angular Material Dialog, and we are bringing it into our component, and we're calling the dialog, and inside the dialog we have access to this open method, and that's what's opening our dialog. Well, this open method also returns an instance of the MatDialogRef, and if we assign this to a variable, and I'll call it dialog_ref. And if I hover on this variable, this returns us a MatDialogRef with the type of our dialog component. And that matches what we were doing within our dialog. Inside of the constructor, our dialog_ref is also the same type. So we should have access to the same methods. If we call on this, the dialog_ref, and then we should have access to the close that we used in the other component. And we also have access to the after close. So after the dialog is closed, this returns a observable. And in this case, we could subscribe to it. And inside the close method, we passed in some data, the user's data. I'll call it result. And we could just set this user's information to that data. So equals result. You don't have to subscribe to it here. You could set it to a variable and subscribe to it within the template. But in this case, we'll just subscribe to it here. Now when the dialog closes, we should see our card update. Now when we update our profile, so let's change the name to Jane Doe. And then also we'll test the bio field as well. I'll just remove the end here. And then if we select update, you should see the card update. There's one issue with this though. If we select the edit profile again and then select cancel, notice our card is empty. And that is because the after close is still being called and we didn't pass back any result. The result was empty and it cleared out the user. This is an easy fix. I'll just cut this out here and then add in brackets. And we'll check if there's a result. Only if there's a result, then update the user. So I'll add that back within here. That should resolve the issue if we go back to the browser. And then if we select cancel now, our information remains. In the next video, let's give the user some feedback so when they successfully update their information, instead of logging it to the console like we're currently doing, let's give the user a nice message using the Angular Material snack bar component, and we'll do that in the next video.